Let's talk about something that's designed to prevent the absolute unthinkable. It's called process safety management. And believe me, it is so much more than just a rule book you have to memorize. It's the entire framework that stands between a totally normal day at the plant and a catastrophic event that makes the 6 o'clock news. It's really about understanding the massive risks we manage and, more importantly, the critical role you play in controlling them every single shift. So, really, what is the difference? It's not one big thing, it's 1,000 small ones. It comes down to the tiny details, the daily decisions you make, and an unwavering commitment to the system. The difference can be a single observation that someone makes, a procedure that's followed perfectly, or even just a question that somebody had the courage to ask. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what that looks like. To really get a handle on process safety, first we have to understand how disasters even happen. And here's the most important thing to grasp. They almost never come out of nowhere. They aren't some sudden bolt of lightning. They are, in fact, a disaster unfolding in slow motion. And look, this path to an incident, it almost always starts small. It kicks off with ignored warnings, an alarm that gets dismissed because it's just a nuisance. Then maybe procedures get skipped just this once. Experts have a term for this. They call it the normalization of deviation, where these small, unsafe acts slowly, creepingly become the new normal. Each one weakens a safety barrier, and as you can see here, those small failures just pile up until the path to disaster is wide open. Okay, so how do we stop that slow-motion disaster in its tracks? Well, it starts with understanding a really fundamental concept. There are two very different kinds of safety. And as you're about to see, confusing them can have some pretty devastating consequences. So, on one hand, we've got personal safety. This is the stuff most people think of first. Hard hats, safety glasses, preventing slips and falls. It's all about protecting individuals from immediate personal harm. But on the other hand, you have process safety. This is the big picture. This is about protecting the whole plant from a catastrophic loss of containment. We're talking a major leak or an explosion that can impact the entire facility and even the community around it. This quote right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the danger. A plant can have a perfect personal safety record, 0 injuries for years, and still be teetering on the brink of a major process safety event. That perfect record can create this false sense of security, It can mask these deep, hidden weaknesses in the system. So the main takeaway is this. We have to be vigilant about both, all the time. Okay, so if we're dealing with these huge kind of hidden risks, how do we actually build a system to manage them? Well, the entire philosophy is built on a really powerful concept: defense in layers. Now, the basic building block of this whole system is the safety barrier. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. A barrier can be anything: a piece of equipment, an automated system, or, and this is crucial, a human action that just stands in the way of a hazard. So here's how those barriers are stacked up. It's often called the Swiss cheese model. The very first layer of defense is the process design itself, building it to be inherently safe. Next up, you've got your automated alarms and interlocks. And then comes a really critical layer: the operator. That's you, intervening with your knowledge. And finally, you have emergency response systems. See, each layer has holes, just like Swiss cheese. The entire goal is to make sure those holes never, ever line up. And that's the key. No single barrier is ever considered foolproof. Not one. The real strength of process safety comes from having multiple, independent layers of protection. When those layers get weakened, or they're ignored, or someone bypasses them, that's when the path to disaster is cleared. That's when the holes line up. And all of this brings us to the most important and honestly the most flexible barrier in the entire system. It isn't a piece of steel, it's not a line of code. It's you. Yeah, I really want you to let that one sink in. You are not just running a plant, you are actively defending it. You are a living, thinking safety barrier. You are the last and often the absolute best line of defense when automated systems fail or some totally unexpected situation pops up. So what does being a frontline defender actually look like, day to day? Well, it's these actions right here. It's noticing a pressure trend that's just a little bit off. It's following every single step in a procedure, even when you've done it 100 times before. It's reporting that small leak or that near miss that maybe somebody else would just ignore. And it's having the guts to stop a job and ask, hey, is this change approved? Have we reviewed the risk on this? These actions, these are what keep those layers of protection strong.
Ultimately, being that final barrier, it really comes down to a professional mindset. It's all about discipline and the absolute core understanding that in this line of work, there are no shortcuts. Period.
Just look at this comparison. A procedure, right? It's designed specifically to protect the safety barriers we've been talking about. It makes sure every job is done the same, controlled, and safe way every single time. A shortcut? Well, it's a gamble. You might save a few minutes, sure, but you are introducing unknown risks and actively weakening the plant's defenses. It's really the difference between being a professional and being a gambler. And let's just be crystal clear about this. Intentionally bypassing an alarm or an interlock because it's annoying or you think you know better isn't a shortcut. It is actively dismantling the safety system. It's like taking one of those slices of Swiss cheese and just throwing it in the trash, leaving everyone that much more vulnerable. Look, we all know the pressure is real. The pressure to get the product out, to meet the targets, to just keep things running. But the fundamental rule, the bedrock of a strong safety culture is this: that pressure can never, ever be an excuse to compromise safety. The safe way is the only way. And so that brings us right back where we started, with a question for you. When you're on shift, the alarms are going off, and the pressure is on to take that shortcut. Which decision are you going to make? Because that single decision is the difference between being a frontline defender and being a missing link in the chain. It is the difference between a safe day and a disaster.